The Morgan family estate stood exactly as it had for the past century, 12 acres of manicured gardens surrounding a Georgian mansion that had graced countless architectural magazines. I parked my modest Volvo next to the line of luxury cars in the circular driveway, each one screaming old money and inherited privilege. My stepbrother Marcus's Porsche sat in Grandma's usual spot, a detail that would have infuriated her. But Grandma Eleanor wasn't here to object anymore. Her passing 2 weeks ago had set today's events in motion, though not in the way my step-family expected. Ms. Elizabeth, George, the elderly groundskeeper, touched his cap as I walked past. His knowing smile reminded me of all the afternoons I'd spent helping him tend the rose gardens while Marcus and my stepsister Victoria lounged by the pool, complaining about having to spend summers at boring old grandma's. The great oak door opened before I could reach for it. Hannah, the housekeeper who'd been here longer than I'd been alive, embraced me warmly. "Right on time, dear," she whispered. "They're all in the library, squabbling like vultures." I could hear them as I approached. The familiar voices of my step-family raised an argument. Dad had married Patricia when I was 10, bringing her 2 children into our quiet life. After his death 5 years later, they'd shown their true colors, slowly pushing me to the margins of the family while Patricia charmed her way into everyone's good graces. Everyone except Grandma Eleanor. "The summer house should be mine," Victoria's voice carried through the hallway. "I'm the one who spent every holiday with Grandma." "Only because you were banned from Monaco for that credit card scandal," I thought, remembering how Grandma had rolled her eyes at Victoria's sudden devotion. "The stock portfolio is the real prize," Marcus countered. And as the only one with an MBA, I had to bite back a laugh. His MBA had come from a diploma mill, bought with family money after he failed out of 3 legitimate universities. But that didn't stop him from calling himself a financial genius at every opportunity. The library doors were open, revealing the assembled family in all their entitled glory. Patricia perched on Grandma's favorite armchair like she already owned it, wearing the kind of black dress that was more fashion statement than mourning. Victoria sprawled on the leather sofa, scrolling through her phone while simultaneously arguing about her claim to the property. Marcus paced by the fireplace, his expensive shoes scuffing the antique rug Grandma had brought back from Morocco. Mr. Sullivan, the family lawyer, sat quietly at Grandma's desk, watching the performance with an expression I knew well. He'd called me last night. "You'll want to be there for this, Elizabeth." Eleanor made sure of that. I stepped into the doorway, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "What is she doing here?" Victoria didn't bother looking up from her phone. "Elizabeth." Patricia's voice dripped false concern. "Darling, this is really just for family." "I am family," I said quietly. "Grandma Eleanor was my father's mother." "Yes, but..." Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "Given the circumstances." "Given that you're not a blood Morgan," Marcus cut in, moving to stand between me and Mr. Sullivan. "This is for real family only." He stepped forward, his 6-foot frame trying to intimidate my 5'4". "We wouldn't want to waste your time. I'm sure you have some little apartment to get back to." The apartment he was referring to was actually a penthouse in the city's most exclusive building, not that they knew that. They all thought I was struggling, living off my modest teaching salary. They had no idea about the tech company I'd built, the investments I'd made, or most importantly, the conversation I'd had with Grandma Eleanor 6 months ago. Actually, I started, but Marcus was already pushing me back through the doorway. "This is for real family only," he sneered, grabbing the heavy library doors. "Go grade some papers, or whatever it is you do." The doors shut in my face with a decisive click. I smoothed my simple black dress, channel, though they'd never recognize it as such, and took a seat in the lobby's window alcove. Through the leaded glass, I could see the rose gardens Grandma and I had tended together, the bench where she'd sat me down last spring with a conspiratorial gleam in her eye. "They think I'm getting senile," she'd said, sipping her tea, playing the doddering old woman while they circle like sharks. "Let them think that. We'll show them what a Morgan woman can do." I checked my watch. The Morgan family crest on its face caught the light. Grandma's graduation gift to me, along with the seed money for my company. The only one of them worth anything, she declared, watching me accept my MBA from Stanford, while Marcus slept off a hangover and Victoria shopped in Paris. My phone buzzed. A message from my CFO. "Morgan estate transfer complete. All paperwork filed." I smiled, settling back to wait. In the library, I could hear Marcus starting his practice speech about his plans for modernizing the estate. Victoria's whining about her emotional connection to the summer house. Patricia's smooth assertions about honoring Eleanor's wishes. Then suddenly, silence. Mr. Sullivan must have opened the envelope. The screaming started exactly as I'd expected. Victoria's high-pitched wail, Marcus's bellow of rage, Patricia's shocked gasp. "She did leave again. This can't be legal. 6 months ago, she sold everything 6 months as a Joe." The library doors flew open. Marcus stormed out, face purple with rage, waving a document. "This is impossible. Grandma would never." He froze, seeing me still seated calmly in the alcove. "Hello, Marcus," I said softly. "Ready to discuss the new rental terms for your wing of the house? Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just owning the estate, it's watching them realize who really owns them." The library had erupted into chaos. Victoria paced frantically, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floors. Grandma Eleanor had restored herself. Patricia sat frozen in what was no longer her chair, her perfectly maintained facade cracking. And Marcus looked like he might actually explode. "Mr. Sullivan," he sputtered, "this has to be a mistake. Grandma wasn't. She couldn't. Your grandmother," Mr. Sullivan said calmly, "was of perfectly sound mind when she sold the estate 6 months ago. In fact, she insisted on a complete psychological evaluation before proceeding, knowing you might try to contest it." I walked back into the library, taking my rightful place behind Grandma's desk. The leather chair still smelled faintly of her signature perfume. "6 months ago," Victoria whispered, sinking onto the sofa, "when she was supposedly getting confused about her medications. When you were all too busy planning how to spend your inheritance to notice she was planning something of her own. I finished for her." Patricia found her voice first. But the money. Surely she didn't. I mean, the estate must have sold for millions. 27 million, to be exact, Mr. Sullivan supplied, which Mrs. Eleanor Morgan immediately reinvested in her granddaughter's technology company, Morgan Innovations. Another shocked silence. Your what?" Marcus turned to me, his face a fascinating shade of purple. I opened my laptop, bringing up the company website. Morgan Innovations, currently valued at just over $3 billion. We specialize in AI-driven security systems and sustainable energy solutions. I smiled. Grandma was our biggest investor and most enthusiastic board member. But you're a teacher, Victoria shrieked. I teach one advanced computer science seminar at MIT. I corrected, as a favor to my alma mater. The rest of my time is spent running my company. The company that now owns this estate, the summer house, and most of the Morgan family holdings. Patricia stood shakily. This isn't possible. You've tricked her somehow. Manipulated her. Mr. Sullivan cleared his throat. I have here a video recording of Mrs. Morgan explaining her decisions. She insisted on making it, again anticipating your reactions. He pressed play on his tablet. Grandma Aliner's face filled the screen, as sharp and elegant as ever. If you're watching this, I'm dead, and my darling vultures are trying to contest my final act of business. She smiled her infamous smile, the one that had terrorized social climbers for decades. To my step-grandchildren, Marcus and Victoria, you never understood what the Morgan name truly meant. You thought it was about money, about status. You spent years pretending to care about me while planning how to spend my fortune. Victoria flinched. Marcus looked away. To Patricia, you married my son for his name and stayed for my money. Don't bother denying it. I've known since you tried to access my accounts during his funeral. Patricia sank back into her chair, her face ashen. But Elizabeth, Grandma's voice softened. Elizabeth understood. She saw the Morgan legacy for what it was. Not just wealth, but innovation, creation, the drive to build something meaningful. While you all were lounging by my pool and planning my death, she was building an empire. In secret, just like I did 60 years ago, when everyone said a woman couldn't run a business. I remembered that conversation, late one night in her study. How she'd recognized the code I was working on, understood its potential. How she'd looked at me and seen not just her granddaughter, but a kindred spirit. So yes, Grandma continued, I sold her everything. Not gave, sold. Because Elizabeth understands that true value isn't in what you're given, but in what you earn. She paid full market price, through her own company, with her own money. Money she made while you were all sneering at her little teaching job. The recording ended. In the silence that followed, you could hear the antique grandfather clock ticking away the seconds of their entitlement. Now, I said, pulling out a stack of folders, let's discuss your living arrangements. Our what? Marcus's voice cracked. Your rental agreements. While I have no intention of evicting you immediately, you'll understand that as the new owner, I need proper contracts in place. Market rate rent, of course. Market rate? Victoria looked faint. But I don't have. An income? I finished. Yes, I know. Fortunately, Morgan Innovations is always hiring. Your resume is a bit thin, but I'm sure we can find you an entry-level position, something where you can learn actual skills. Marcus drew himself up, trying to regain some dignity. Now see here, this is our home. No, I cut him off. This was Grandma's home, which she sold to me. Your sense of entitlement doesn't constitute ownership. I opened the first folder. Now about that MBA you claim to have. The color drained from his face. Fraud is such an ugly word, I continued. I prefer to think of it as an opportunity for growth. You can either sign a legitimate rental agreement and accept a position in our corporate compliance department, where you'll learn about actual business ethics, or you can try explaining your fake credentials to the board of your investment firm. Your choice. Patricia stood up, smoothing her designer dress. Elizabeth, Surely we can discuss this reasonably. As family. Family? I looked up at her. Like when you canceled my college fund after Dad died? Or when you told the country club I was unfortunately unstable when I started my company instead of joining your social circle? She sat back down. Mr. Sullivan, I said, please distribute the rental agreements. They have until Friday to sign or vacate. Victoria burst into tears. Real ones this time, not the calculated sobs she usually employed. Marcus looked like he was having trouble breathing. Patricia just sat there, probably calculating how many of her society friends would hear about this. Oh, and one more thing, I added, picking up Grandma's favorite fountain pen. The staff, Hannah, George, everyone you've been treating like servants instead of the family they actually are, they all get to stay, with significant raises and full benefits. Through the window, I could see George tending the roses we planted together. Hannah appeared in the doorway, carrying a tea service, Grandma's best china. Your usual Earl Grey, Miss Elizabeth? She asked, her eyes twinkling. Yes, thank you, Hannah. I sat back in what was now my chair, in what was now my library, in what had always been my true home. I believe we have some long overdue changes to discuss. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just taking back what's yours. It's using it to build something better than they could ever imagine. 3 months after the inheritance revelation, the Morgan estate had transformed. The East Wing, once Marcus's private party haven, now housed Morgan Innovations' new AI research center. The pool house where Victoria had spent countless hours sunbathing had become a state-of-the-art conference facility. And Grandma Aliner's beloved gardens had been expanded, with a new sustainable greenhouse that powered half the property. I sat in the library, my library now, reviewing the latest changes when Hannah brought in my morning coffee. The contractors finished the solar installation, she reported, setting down the cup. And Miss Victoria actually arrived on time for her training session today. That made me look up. Really? How's she doing? Sarah in HR says she's showing surprising aptitude for project coordination. Once she stopped complaining about having to work, that is. I smiled, remembering Victoria's face when I'd explained that her new entry-level position included managing the estate's renovation projects. You want me to work with contractors? She's learning, I said, taking a sip of coffee. How's Marcus adjusting to the compliance department? Hannah's eyes twinkled. Well, after he accidentally exposed his own fake MBA during his first audit, he's been surprisingly dedicated to understanding actual business ethics. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Marcus, who'd spent years bragging about his business acumen, was now learning the basics from entry-level compliance training. My phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Sullivan. Patricia's here. Says it's urgent. I sighed. Sent her in. Patricia entered looking distinctly less polished than usual. The designer outfits had been replaced by something more practical, and her perfect manicure showed signs of actual work. Elizabeth, she began, then stopped, taking in the changes to the library. The antique furniture remained. Grandma's taste had always been impeccable, but now it shared space with cutting-edge technology. Holographic displays showed real-time business data, while the old oak shelves held both leather-bound classics and digital archives. The country club board meeting was this morning, she said finally. Ah, so that's what this was about. They're revoking my membership. Her voice cracked slightly. Apparently, living in rental property doesn't meet their ownership requirements. How unfortunate, I said mildly, remembering all the times she'd used that same club to exclude me. Though I hear the public golf course is quite nice. Elizabeth, please. She sank into a chair. I know I've made mistakes. Mistakes? I set down my coffee, like canceling my college fund, or telling everyone I was mentally unstable when I started my company? Or perhaps you mean the mistake of trying to access Grandma's accounts during my father's funeral. She flinched at each example. I was wrong. About everything. About you. Yes, I agreed. You were. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she continued. But I'd like to understand. How did you do it? Build all this while we thought you were just a teacher? Just the quiet stepdaughter you could safely ignore. I stood, walking to the window. The garden below was full of activity. Employees enjoying the new outdoor workspace. Researchers discussing projects among the roses Grandma and I had planted. I learned from Grandma Eleanor, I said finally. Not just about business, but about power. Real power isn't in showing off or pushing others down. It's in building something meaningful while everyone underestimates you. She always saw something in you, Patricia admitted. I used to be jealous of how much time you spent together. She saw herself. I turned back to face her. A woman who built an empire while society told her to just be decorative. Did you know she bought her first company using money she made selling her own jewelry? Her husband, Grandpa Morgan, thought she was just maintaining her social connections, but she was actually building a network of investors. Patricia looked thoughtful. I never knew that. No one did. That was the point. I sat back down, pulling up some files on my tablet. Speaking of points, I assume you're here about more than just the country club? She straightened in her chair. Yes, I'd like to work. A real job, not just charity boards and social committees. That I hadn't expected. The renovation project, she continued. I've been watching Victoria learn about it, and I had experience with historical properties. From all those museum boards I sat on, I thought maybe I studied her carefully. The perfectly curated facade had cracked, revealing something almost genuine. The Heritage Conservation Team does need a coordinator, I said slowly. Someone who understands both historical value and modern functionality. But I held up a hand as hope flickered across her face. It's not a glamorous position. No assistant, no expense account. Just hard work preserving what matters while building something new. Like what you've done here, she gestured to the library. Exactly. I pulled up a contract. You'll report to Victoria. 2. Victoria? She blinked. She's earned it. Turns out when you actually give people a chance to prove themselves, they sometimes surprise you. I sent the contract to her email. Take the weekend to think about it. After she left, Hannah reappeared with fresh coffee. That was generous of you, she said. We'll see if she actually takes it. I checked my schedule. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. Is everything ready in the new conference room? Yes, though Marcus is nervous about presenting his first compliance report. I smiled. Good. A little nervousness keeps people honest. The estate hummed with activity as I walked to the conference room. Employees, many of them local kids who'd never dreamed of working in tech, collaborated in spaces that had once hosted only idle gossip and social climbing. The old Morgan money had transformed into something productive, innovative, meaningful. In the hall, I passed the portrait of Grandma Eleanor in her prime, elegant, sophisticated, and secretly powerful. The artist had captured the gleam in her eye, That hint of hidden strength that most people missed. My phone buzzed again. A message from my CFO. Stock hit another record high. The sustainable energy division is exceeding all projections. I typed back, "Good. Implement the employee stock option plan we discussed. Time to share the success." Victoria appeared around the corner, looking surprisingly professional in a business suit that probably cost less than her old handbags. "Monthly project review is ready," she reported. The Heritage team hit all their targets, and the new greenhouse design won that sustainability award. "Good work," I said, watching her try to hide her pride. "How's Marcus doing with his presentation?" Terrified, she smiled slightly. "But he actually understands the material now, and he hasn't mentioned his fake MBA in weeks." We entered the conference room together, the same room where they'd once tried to exclude me from the inheritance meeting. Now it was filled with actual business leaders, innovators, and employees who'd earned their positions. Marcus stood at the podium, wearing a modest suit and a nervous expression. Patricia sat quietly in the back, taking notes about the historical features we were preserving. And through the windows, George tended the gardens where Grandma and I had planned all this years ago. Ready to begin? I took my place at the head of the table, because sometimes the best revenge isn't just succeeding, it's creating a legacy that transforms everyone it touches, even those who never thought they needed transformation. And as I looked around at what the Morgan estate had become, I knew Grandma Alina would be proud. Not just of me, but of how her final chess move had forced everyone to become better versions of themselves. The antique clock chimed 10, and I called the meeting to order. After all, we had an empire to run, the right way, this time.